All right, Scott, thanks for coming on the show, man. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Yeah, it's an honor to have you on and be talking to you. I gotta say. Um,
Well, thanks.
yeah. So I mean, let's just dive into it. I think for
Okay.
I've got kind of a general sample of the population, maybe. Not somebody who has necessarily been to a Gwar show
hmm
or maybe
hmm
even knows who they are, maybe has heard of them a bit. But can you just give us a rundown of who is Gwar?
Who is Gwar? Okay, so what most people know Gwar as, what they are on the surface, is an insane group of space barbarians that have been stranded here on Earth. And they actually created the human race by having sex with apes millions of years ago. They created humans. They hate us because of that. They consider us their bastard offspring. They got frozen in Antarctica for millions of years after creating humans, in which in the early 80s, whenever the hair bands like Poison and Warrant started using a bunch of hairspray, that depleted the ozone layer, which thawed them out. And a sleazy Hollywood manager, accurately named Sleazy P. Martini, found them. He was on the run from the feds and the mob and a bunch of people. So he was in Antarctica. He found them and he said, I can make $1 million with these guys if I turn them into a rock band, because they were barbarians. They already kind of looked like rockers. So they're these space monster barbarians. They're these space monster barbarians that play in a heavy metal band, and they kill people on stage. They chop people's heads off. They squirt blood. So if you go to a Gwar concert, you're going to be covered in blood and slime and all sorts of bodily fluids. And it's awesome.
Yeah. Well said. I love the premise, the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's so freaking fun. It's just great. So I mean, how did you find Gwar?
I mean, so I've always been into, rock and roll music, heavy metal and punk rock and all that stuff.
Hmm.
I've always liked it all. And so Gwar was always a band that I always knew of. I always kind of say they're like one of those bands that's like a crossover, that if you're kind of like in a music scene, like, about them, kind of like the Misfits or Motorhead or something like that. Like punkers seem to like them, metal people like them. Everybody just thought they were cool because they're so bizarre. They're not dated at all because they dress like space barbarians. And so I'd always known about them and always thought they were real cool. But I didn't know a lot about them.
Hmm.
I just knew, the surface level of them.
Right.
And then I thought that they would be a cool idea for a documentary. And originally just because of the visuals, just because I was like, I want to know what that stage show is like and all that stuff. And then I found out that I had a friend that opened up for him, a guy named Rocky Moon. He's in a band called American Sharks. They're awesome. Everyone should check them out. And they opened up for Gwar, and he was telling me one day that he was having Thanksgiving at Jizmak Dagusha. That's the drummer for Gwar,
Hmm.
at his house. And the idea of Thanksgiving with Gwar was burned into my brain. I was like,
Right.
that is such an image. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, can you maybe like pitch me to do a documentary? I'd done one documentary before and it had done okay. And so the more that I started researching them, I was like, there's a real story here. It's not
Hmm.
just something that looks cool. Because I have that's one of my things. I kind of like will write a bunch of ideas. I always have ideas for documentaries. I have a Google Doc that I have in my phone, and I'm always just like, oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. But most of them, the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's neat, but it wouldn't really make a feature length documentary, maybe like a short or, one of those type things. But
Hmm.
when the idea of maybe getting to do a Gwar documentary became a possibility, and I started researching them, I was like, whoa, this can easily support a feature-length documentary.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Once you start to, on the surface level, it's like crazy, it's awesome, it's fun. And then but you start thinking about it, you start asking questions. You're like, how the hell do they pull all this off? There's so much going on.
Exactly. And that was one thing that really drew me to it is, a lot of people know who they are. Like people that are, if you're even casually into rock and roll, you've probably heard of them. But then also just like your average person has probably heard of them. They were on Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
They were on Empire Records. That's where a lot of people know them.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm telling people what I'm doing and they're just kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? What are you making a documentary about this band? What is it? And I go, Empire Records, when the dude eats a pot brownie and imagines he's being eaten on stage. I'm like, oh, yeah. Because, Empire Records is kind of this like cult classic movie or whatever. So everybody kind of knew of them, but it's something you don't stop and think somebody's got to set all that crap up. Somebody's got to build it. You kind of take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I found out that they do everything themselves, they make that stuff. They set it up. They take it from city to city every day. There's no company behind them. They are the company. And I was like, these guys are like a DIY band. Usually when you think of a DIY band, you think of like a punk band, 4 or 5 dudes in, jeans and a t-shirt playing, punk rock or something. But they're every bit as DIY as as a punk band, but just with this huge elaborate stage show. So that was something that I really wanted to kind of pull the curtain back and go, yeah, you've seen them, but do you ever stop to think about how that works? And, Gwar is not a band. They're really not. They're an artist collective.
Yeah.
And the folks that make all that stuff, that build the costumes, that set up the blood tanks, that put that stage show together. Because for those that don't know, a Gwar show, it's not just a concert. It's a mini play. There's like a story that goes on where they get attacked by robots or whatever, and they'll kill the president. All this stuff happens while they're playing rock and roll. And so they write that, they set that up. It's like a little play, and they do it all themselves. So the guys that build it are members of Gwar, even though they play no instruments. Gwar is not just the musicians, it's everybody. And that was what was fascinating to me. They're really, there's bands that wear costumes like Slipknot or Kiss, or even something like Alice Cooper that's older.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really not what Gwar is. On the surface level, it's what Gwar looks like, but it's not what they are. They're not a band that wears costumes. The costumes actually came first. They were making a movie, and then they were going to that was going to be one scene in the movie where, one of the guys was going to play music. So really, it's not a band that decided to wear costumes, so they had someone design them. This has been a movie. This has been about space. The Space Barbarians came before the band even did.
Yeah.
So it's just very different. It's not a gimmick.
Right. And they even had that shift in their mindset almost, where they decided like, okay, we got to focus on the music a bit more here. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're right. At the beginning, the musicians really did not matter at all. It was all about the stage show, and the musicians were kind of an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they put out a record, and then as the band started really taking off more so than the movie did. And then, that's when they were like, we really probably need to get some good musicians that are steady. It wasn't even that some of the early folks weren't good. There were a lot of really good musicians. The band Death Piggy that Gwar kind of spawned from, they're all great, but it was that it wasn't consistent. It was just whoever was there at the time. It was always somebody else. It was usually people in another band that were coming over and helping them out. So, that's funny because it's another thing. There's a common joke that it's like, did you know there's not even any original members in Gwar?
Yeah.
And it's that's kind of true, but not really, because, Brad, the drummer, and Mike Dirks, the guitar player, they've been in it since the 80s. So come on.
Let's give it
who else? Let's give it to them. And really, they are original, because those first few years, it wasn't a band. It was just a joke. The moment it became a real band, they were there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they definitely take it seriously, and
mm-hmm.
I always have kind of built things and made, stuff like little Macintoshes. Cool. I'll put like iPads in them, and I just made like a replica of the Big Randy's donut from LA and stuff. So I've always made stuff like that. And when I'll watch, something like a Gwar show, I'm so interested in how they've done, like they'll do things that sometimes I need to make myself like turn that part of my brain off and like let's just enjoy the show and watch that for a second, because I am always so curious of the behind the scenes stuff. And like, especially for this, building the costumes and the props and the special effects that they have is incredible. But then when you think about the fact that they're actually touring every night and traveling, and they're on stage, like, they're beating up their stuff. They're not like delicate up there. It is like some serious building and craftsmanship that these guys have.
It is. And that I think is one thing that, again, people don't think of, is that, you put a play together and you do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe a matinee once. And, you've got time in between. But these guys put on a rock show where, like you said, they're beating it up. And then they have to take it to a whole other city the very next day. They usually tour for about 3 months. It's crazy. Like they'll tour for 2 or 3 months. So, yeah, they have to build stuff with that thought, with the idea of, one, it has to work. It has to work and be easy to do. That's the other thing, is when you look at how they do it, it's genius in that they found the most efficient way to do it. There's not a lot of stuff back there as much as you would think. And so they've really found they're geniuses too. In addition to being great artists, great musicians, hardworking people, they're also geniuses with the way they MacGyver these things together. Because they've got to take it to a different city every day. And if something breaks, it's not like they have a day off to fix it. They have to come up with something quick, so there's a lot of duct tape, a lot of hot glue, but it doesn't look like that. They make it look really cool. They make it look like these weird special effects.
Yeah. And just looking at the costumes and everything, I'm looking at it and it looks like kind of this, it's like, you can't even really explain it, but it looks like thrown together, but they still look cohesive. It's really impressive how they're able to pull that off.
It is. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. The design of it, you're right. And that, that's another thing they have. They're illustrators and they have that element of design. So yeah, like you said, it's a lot of weird, different things, but somehow it works. None of the two Gwar monsters look the same, but they don't clash with each other. It makes sense somehow.
Yeah. You could tell they have an artistic eye for it. But do you know, like in general, usually how many people are on stage and how many people are kind of backstage working for them?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, there's 5 musicians that are playing on stage. And then there is Bob and Matt. They are kind of the heart of Gwar in a lot of ways, and they don't play instruments. They are the main artists right now of Gwar. And they're also like the stage managers. They do a bunch of stuff. They come in and make sure everything is set up. They build everything and they set it up. They do the scheduling, not all the scheduling. They've got a really great tour manager. But Matt is kind of considered like the stage manager. And Bob is like the shop foreman. But, they are members of Gwar, and they are extremely important members of Gwar. So they are always there. And they usually play all of the characters. They're in and out of costumes. They're playing all the other characters that you see, which usually there's a lot. There's usually an enemy. There's usually a president. And then there's usually some other random people that get killed. And then usually they have one other person with them. So the musicians, they're just playing. They're wearing their costumes, but their job is to play because it's hard enough. Their guitar player, Mike Dirks, who plays Ballsack, the Jaws of Death, he's the guy with the huge bear trap on his head. He can't see his guitar when he plays, and he still
that's a good
playing
point.
Like pretty complicated heavy metal. But so Bob and Matt, they're the ones that are going around getting in and out of costumes. They usually play 3 or 4 characters each. And then they usually have one other person as well. Gwar is known for having these human slaves that are usually just a man in a loincloth in some sort of mask. but it looks cool because it looks like Gwar has these kind of little minions running around, but those guys are also secretly, they're able to kind of move stuff around on stage.
That's smart.
And you don't notice it. So Bob and Matt always play a slave, and then another guy plays a slave, and then those three guys wear costumes. So yeah, I guess it's 8, 5 musicians, and then 3 artists is typically what it is.
That's pretty remarkable that those 3 are able to kind of get all that, under
it really
control.
Is. Because somebody's got to work like the spew, somebody's got to work and it's pretty genius how they do it. It's like this whole elaborate system where all the different costumes have the ability to squirt stuff out of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. Mm-hmm. And so somebody's job, there's a hose that's pressurized that comes from these tanks. So essentially someone's job is, let's say somebody comes out and they're going to get their head cut off. It's somebody's job to kind of almost plug that hose into the back of them somewhere. So now blood can come out of them. And then when that character goes off stage, they pull the plug out of them. And then maybe they'll go put it in the lead singer, in his costume so that he can squirt blood out of his utter penises things. And then they'll take it out of him and put it into Trump so that when he gets his head cut off, it'll squirt out of him. So it's pretty genius how, all those costumes, they don't have to have their own like hose. It's like 2 or 3 hoses that are constantly being put on other ones. It's really genius how they came up with it.
Yeah, that's smart. They're all sharing the same blood tank, I guess. They're all the same blood type. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think in your film they mentioned that they have basically like a huge truck that they have to travel with just to carry all their stuff, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So they have their own vehicle that they're in. Yeah. And then somebody has to drive like a 18-wheeler type thing with all their stuff in it.
Wow.
But they have it, because they've been doing it for so long, they have it down to a science. I mean, everything, it's all like categorized into these big, huge boxes that they wheel out, and it opens up into almost like a little closet. It's like imagine like a huge case, that they open up, and then it's got all the costumes that they can just get to real easy. And, they've become very efficient at setting it up. They have a tour manager named Eddie Ortel, who was extremely vital. Him and then a manager at the time, Jack Flanagan, whipped them into shape and got them, you need to do this like a machine. Mm-hmm. Because for the longest time, a lot of rock bands, they make their money at festivals. That's where you get seen and that's where you make money.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Gwar can't play a festival because it's not just amps, it's all this other stuff. And, Eddie, he's tour managed a lot of rock bands, and he's just a pro. He was the one that, I don't know if it was him, but somebody was like, you guys can do festivals. You just got to be smart, And so, and they also thought they couldn't open up for other people because how do you, open up when you got all this stuff, So they figured out a way to do it. And they've got a really great, Jack Flanagan unfortunately passed away, but now they've got a really great management team called Indigoot, and they just operate it like a machine. So they're able to do things they never thought they would be able to before, which, I mean, they've been doing it for over 30 years. So they've had a lot of time to perfect the art.
Yeah. They've refined their process and their organization and everything. Yeah. Yep. Do you know if they have any issues with because I'm watching this thing, I'm like, damn, they're just soaking the audience with blood and bodily fluids. Like, do they have issues finding venues that will accept them?
They don't. And I guess it's just because maybe they've developed relationships with these venues that the venues know what they're in for. And they know that it's going to be packed, the venue's going to make a bunch of money that night. Cause Gwar does, I mean, they are successful, they, in an era where people say rock music is dying, they'll pack out these venues and without even being on the radio or anything. They have such loyal fans, and it's not something that you can pirate, you can't get the Gwar experience on Spotify.
Yeah.
You have to go. So they'll always have people going to their concerts, and they sound great live too. But the other thing is they are professional and they're respectful. So Gwar gets there at 10 in the morning. They get to the venue at 10 in the morning. And the first thing they do is they put carpet over everything, over the whole stage. And they put that kind of like, what is it, like the plastic over all the monitors and all the speakers and anything that could get hurt that's within their spew range. they cover it. They're very respectful of the venue.
Okay.
So yeah, that I think that's why, it's kind of a trade-off. Yeah, it's going to be wild, but the venue's going to make a bunch of money. They probably know them. They've probably had them there many times. And yeah, Gwar, like I said, they've got it down to a science and they know how to not mess up a venue. They talk about how in the early days they did, like the blood is essentially water with some food dye in it. So it does stain your skin, but it's not like gross to get on you. Some people might be like, hey, am I going to be all sticky and
syrupy
nasty
and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. And originally that's what they did use. And then, they got that down in a monitor, at one of the speakers at a show and ruined it. And they were not welcomed back for a long time. So, they know what they're doing. They've refined it. And yeah, I mean, I've never heard of a venue getting upset with them.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's remarkable. And yeah, that was, I forget who had the line in the film, but someone kind of said like they saw a show and they're like, man, these guys are awesome. I got to get involved. If they're like half sane, then I'm working with them. And like, he's like, and they were totally sane and we had a great relationship. And that's like, I think that's a big, maybe realization for some people is that like these guys are like serious and they're respectful of the venue, like you said, and they're professionals.
Yeah. I always joke, I met some of the best people I've ever met my entire life working on a documentary about monsters that murder people. Yeah. They're just great people. They're hardworking. I mean, I have never heard of a band that works as hard as they do. I mean, they're just hardworking. They're smart. They're respectful. But they put on a great show. And there's I mean, I don't know. They're just great. They're really awesome. And that's something too. I think that I want people to see behind that curtain is that another thing, like you were saying, you don't think about it, but to make that work, you can't be dumb. You can't be some dumb, boneheaded rock and roller, who's coked out of their mind and is just trying to, do something. Like you got to be with it and smart to make that, to create that stage show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's something too for people that may not realize is like they're still around. They've lasted, over 30 years now?
Yep. They've never gone away. It's not like it's a comeback. You'll see in the documentary, there were times where they've had their ups and downs, but yeah, it's not like an Anvil story. I don't know if you've seen that documentary. It's really good, but it's not anything like that. They've always, they've just done great through the ages. And I think some of it is the fact that there's nothing like them, rock and roll trends go in and out, oh, it's hair metal. Now it's grunge. Now it's rap rock. Now it's Mumford and Sons or whatever, it's the Strokes, but they're monsters, from outer space. It can't be dated, right. And they've always, from the very beginning, they play overall metal, you could say, but they've always dabbled with other styles of music. So they've survived all of these trends and they'll continue to survive trends. And, all these bands now are struggling because records aren't selling like they used to, people aren't buying records as much, and rock and roll isn't at the forefront of music like it used to be. And so a lot of rock bands, they're having to reinvent themselves. It's like, you can't just be in a band. You got to have cool merch and be a brand. That's what they say. You got to be a whole brand, a whole experience. Well, Gwar's already doing that. They already were doing what all the other bands are having to do now. They were doing it back in the 80s. So I think that's one reason they've always done well is they're not a band. They have other ways. They've sold comic books. They have a D&D style board game out right now. Yeah. They have beer. They have whiskey. They have a bar. They have the Gwar bar. They've got little miniatures. I mean, they just got all this stuff, and they always have. So if they were telling us that, I was worried about them. We were filming this right before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of worked out perfect that whenever the pandemic hit was right when it was time to edit. So we had nothing to do but all this post-production stuff. We were stuck inside.
Right.
But, I still talked to them, and I did film a couple of things, I believe, whenever it kind of, the vaccine had come out and stuff like that. But I remember I was worried about it. I was like, because, you guys make your money from touring. That's what, like we were saying, you can't get that experience on Spotify. Yeah. But they were saying, they made just as much money during the pandemic as they did when they were touring, because they just worked on making a lot of cool stuff for their fans and for people to buy. And they worked on a lot of different business deals, coffee. I mean, they have everything, mm-hmm. and they have their bar that could still deliver food during it. So that made me feel really good that it's like, yeah, you guys, the stage show is where you make money, but you can do other things. They're really great.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and them being artists too, they have like some of the coolest graphics and everything too. They got some cool stuff for sure.
They really do, yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into so you said you kind of got them or somebody to pitch them,
mm-hmm.
This idea for you to do a documentary on it. What was their reaction? Were they just gung ho? How did that all get started?
Well, luckily, my friend Rocky, who introduced me, he's just like the most lovable guy in the world. Like, he's one of those guys where it's like, if he's a friend of yours, he's a friend of mine too. So,
mm-hmm.
And he had toured with them on that first tour after Dave Brockie had passed. So I don't know. I don't want to speak, but maybe that helped him bond a little bit more because it was a very, emotional time.
Yeah.
But he said, hey, I want to introduce you to my friend. And it was kind of good timing because Gwar had wanted to do a documentary for a long time. And they had wanted to do one themselves. But, a documentary takes an insane amount of time to make. And an insane amount of time is not something that Gwar has, with everything else they were doing. But they had wanted to do it. And, so they talked to me and they liked where my head was. I said, I want to make something that your fans will like, sure. But I also want to make something that a regular person whose favorite band is Garth Brooks or whatever, Wu-Tang Clan will like this, because I think that your story is much bigger than heavy metal. Mm-hmm. I don't think this isn't a heavy metal story. That's just part of it, know? And so they liked that, they're like, yeah, they liked the fact that I saw something more in the story. And so the downfall was, or not downfall, but I guess hiccup, maybe, I don't even know, roadblock, because Gwar is so cool. You could not take a bad picture at a Gwar show. If you're a photographer, you could go take pictures and people are going to think you're the best photographer in the world because it just looks amazing, because they look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, and they already have made movies, they're funny. People have tried to make Gwar movies or shows and stuff like that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've had that a lot, and it usually didn't pan out. A lot of times people wanted Gwar to do the work. One thing that the way they kind of said was people would point a camera at them and just go, be silly, be Gwar,
Yeah.
And so, they weren't hesitant. They liked me just fine. And so the deal we kind of had was, we called it a proof of concept. I'm going to come out there. I'm going to interview you guys. I'm going to film a concert, and I'm going to make a little short, like a little 10, 15 minute short documentary about you guys, so you can see that I'm going to put in the work, that I've got the skills, that I'm ready to tell a story here, that I've got a vision. I'm not just somebody who's going to point a camera and then expect it to magically look cool when you load it in the computer. So I did that. I edited something together, and then I sent it to them, and I didn't hear anything back for like a week and a half.
Ooh.
And I was like, crap, like, I guess I blew it. I was like, I thought it was cool, but I guess, maybe they didn't. And then finally, Bob Gorman, he hit me up and was like, oh yeah, sorry, dude. Gwar, we had just a bunch of stuff to do. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. They've always got a million irons in the fire. Even now, they had an album come out, and now they've got this documentary coming out, and they just advertised something else that they're coming out with today. I think it's I don't think it's a whiskey. I think they've already done that, but it's something else. It's like, I didn't even know they were doing that, you know? And so they just they wanted to do it. It just took them a while to get to it because they all had to watch it, talk about it, and they all have such crazy lives. So, then they were like, okay, yeah, like, let's do this. And so then it was on, then I just started making it happen. I got my team together, of, producers and cinematographers and all of that. And we started filming it.
Nice. Yeah. So what was the, first, you did a great job, gotta say,
thank you.
Mission accomplished for what you're trying to do. It was, it's a beautiful documentary. It was easy to watch. It just flew by. And, it was very well done. I'm glad you had the opportunity to do it and that you did it so well. So that was great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, I'm curious about, your process. Did you get to go on the road with them at all or anything like that?
Yes and no. I really wanted to. So the thing about Gwar is that, like I said, they get there at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they set up, then they do a sound check. Then because they're really awesome, they do like a meet and greet with their fans where they'll hang out with their fans for a little bit while they're not in character, while they're as the humans.
Cool.
And they'll watch them sound check and they'll sign stuff and they can take pictures with all the crazy props.
Nice.
And then, then they get ready for the show. So they have a busy day every day. So, you think about it, they get there at 10 in the morning and then a show, wraps up around midnight, 1 o'clock somewhere, and then they have to break everything down. And then they have to travel to another city.
Yeah.
So they have to sleep on their bus. Like they have a bus. That's the only way they could make it because, then it's 1, 2 in the morning. It's not like you can drive to a hotel, sleep, and then, sometimes it's 6 hours in between the two cities, 4 or 6 hours, when you're playing in between cities,
Yeah. Jeez.
So they basically just sleep on the bus and then wake up and do it all over and over again. So I wasn't able to, I wanted to be like, let me be on the bus, but there just wasn't enough room. So we were trying to keep up with them, but we were having to drive to a hotel, sleep, and then drive the next day. So it was difficult, but we still got the experience of, we got to get there at 10 in the morning with them and see the whole thing inside and out. And it was really an awesome experience to get to see everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that would just be so fun to see all that kind of stuff.
It really was to watch them set up their props and stuff. And I would get that, they would start at 10 in the morning and I would see Bob and Matt setting up all the costumes, getting everything ready. And, like you said, you got to make stuff that can get beat up and then put in a box and ship to another town and do it all over again for months at a time. And so I would see it in the light, in the morning, seeing them putting it together. Mm-hmm. And Bob likes to call it low tech. He's like, it's very low tech, but it works. And the analogy that I would use is it's like a car, you have an automatic, which is great, but it's got more pieces that can break. Whereas, you have a standard, there's less things that can go wrong. And that's kind of the way that I think of it. It's very simple stuff, but then, the show happens, the lights go down and those stage lights come on and you would never know that the same stuff that they were hot gluing together, that was like a tab A slot B type thing was the same stuff that you're seeing in this dynamic stage show. It's really incredible. They use stuff that magicians, the same tricks that magicians use.
Oh, really?
To make stuff look weird. Yeah. Their guitar player, anyone listening, you should look it up. Balsac, the Jaws of Death. He's got these goat legs and people are always wondering, how does it work? Because it looks like goat legs that bend backwards. It doesn't look, it looks like it would have to be this weird contraption where he's kind of, having to balance, and it's not. It's a lot more simple, but it's all sleight of hand illusion and stuff. So they employ all those techniques and yeah, it's really very dynamic to get to see it in the morning and then see this explosion of awesomeness at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it is really tough to get to that level of simplicity. Like in hindsight, you see it and you're like, okay, that's just how you do it. It's easy, it's done. But to get there is like, I've worked through stuff like that before where it seems simple, but the idea and the germination to get there is really hard. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
and I mean, and especially during a live show, you don't want things to go wrong. I mean, like, our behind the scenes here, we just had a little hiccup and this is the simplest setup ever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Things that look simple, they're not easy because it took a lot of time to make it simple and to make it so, okay, this is what we need and this is what's going to work under extreme circumstances. And they've really thought about it over the years. You can tell they've evolved it. Certain things are the same tricks they used back in the 80s and certain things are different. They have one character that's essentially two guys in a costume so that then you can cut it in half and both of the pieces can kind of jump around.
That was amazing. Yeah.
It's really cool. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's something simple that's actually really a complex thought went into making something really simple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Weird Al, you got him for the documentary. How did you get Weird Al in there?
Yeah, that was, that was a dream come true to get to meet Weird Al. That was just insane. It's like, I can't be talking to the real life Weird Al. Like this just it can't be, right. And not even in a like autographed situation. Like we're just sitting here talking about Gwar for like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And he rolled in with no posse, no nothing. He just showed up. He's like, "Hey guys, I'm ready to do this."
Cool.
Sat down, killed it, and then was like, "Okay, we're like that's all we need. We don't want to take up too much of your time," because he gave us gold. So that was a dream. So the way that it happened. So I heard that you also do parties, balloon animals, entertainment, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's right. Yep.
So one of our producers, his name is Bill Parks, and he's a real multi-talented guy. He's a documentary producer. He produced this documentary. He also produced the Nickelodeon documentary on Hulu. I was on that too. He produced a documentary called Ghost Heads that I think is on maybe Peacock now. It's somewhere. He's an actor. He's been on every single show, How I Met Your Mother, American Horror Story, Community. He's just a real estate dude, and he also has a party company where he does like parties, any sort of party with balloon animal people, magicians, stilt walkers, elephants, like whatever you need.
Right.
And so he had done a party and he had seen Thomas Lennon and Weird Al there. And it was a party that Thomas Lennon was throwing. And so Thomas loved it. And was like, and Thomas Lennon is also in the documentary. He's a famous comedian. Reno 911 is what he's mainly known for, but he's been in all sorts of stuff. He was in the last Christian Bale Batman movie, even Hot Tub Time Machine. I Love You, Man. Just all sorts of stuff. But he loved Bill, and so Bill was like, I want to reach out to Thomas Lennon and ask him, if maybe he would want to be in the documentary, or Weird Al would want to be in the documentary, or whatever. But he didn't. We were like, is that really like kind of unethical? Because you've got one business that you know him from, and now you're transferring it over to another business.
Right. Tricky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we didn't want to be like, because so Weird Al, we really wanted, because we knew we really like putting, it makes sense to put famous people in your doc, or well-known people in your doc, because then fans of them will watch it and see this other thing that maybe they didn't know about. Maybe someone likes Weird Al, will be like, "Oh, that's cool. Weird Al's saying it's cool. I'll watch it," or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, but we also don't like it whenever documentaries will put famous people in there just to have them in there, and they don't really have anything to say, Yeah,
it's got to be a tie-in or something.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you did that because it is a business move, because then your documentary will sell for more money. You do have or not even for more money, just at all. It'll sell at all, because you can say you have this person in it. So we wanted to have some people in it, but they had to make sense. And Weird Al was in a Gwar cartoon called The Animated Tales of Gwar.
That's right.
And he also makes sense because they're a comedy. They're kind of like a parody. They are parodying metal while they're also celebrating metal. They're kind of a parody act. They wear costumes. Weird Al is a parody act who wears costumes and travels. So, you know, he has a rubber fat suit. They've got fake rubber butts that get stuff shoved in it. So we're like, it's kind of similar. So we knew we wanted him, and but we didn't want to be like, hey, Thomas Lennon, you know, it was already like presumptuous to ask, like, will you be in our doc? But then also like, will you talk to your buddy Weird Al? And so, but Thomas was so nice. He was like, Bill, I love you. I would do anything for you.
Wow.
He's like, I'll talk about Gwar. I'll talk about Gwar for a while. Cause that also made sense because he's a comedian. And we wanted to show that there are different reasons you should like Gwar. We wanted to explore all the elements. Heavy metal is only one. Mm-hmm. So they are a heavy metal band. So we have other heavy metal artists talking about how good they are as musicians. We've got Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, Kyle Shutt from The Sword. They're all saying, yes, you know, lending that kind of credibility. These guys are amazing musicians. And then we also have Adam Green, who's a horror film director who can kind of talk about that aspect of how hard it is to do special effects, let alone live. And then we wanted to have comedians who could talk about how funny Gwar is, because that's one thing I think people don't know about is not, I mean, their fans do, and a lot of people do, but your average person might look at them and be like, ooh, they're spooky, they're creepy, I don't want to. But it's like, no, they're really funny. You know, they're a satire. They're a satirical act. They're like social commentary. They're really smart social commentary. It's kind of funny, kind of like South Park in a way is what I would almost kind of use as a frame of reference for people that don't know about him. And so Thomas Lennon made sense. He was also at MTV at the same time Gwar was trying to get on MTV. So he did the interview and it was amazing. The only thing that was hard about it was we were all trying so hard not to laugh because he's so funny. You'll see the first time you see him in the documentary, he's holding his dog who's asleep. You know, It's a Gwar documentary, and he's holding him almost like a super villain or something. He's holding this tiny dog on his chest, and the dog is like people. It just gets a laugh before he even opens his mouth, and you know, he just struck that pose. Just he knew it was funny. He's a natural.
Yeah.
And so we were so fortunate to get him, and then he was like, hey. You know who would be good for this? Weird Al. And we're like, man. Oh, yeah, that would be really cool. So he was like, do you want me to reach out to him? And we're like, I mean, yeah, if you want, that'd be cool, you know? And so as we're sitting there, I mean, he was not a rock star at all. He sat there and talked to us just about Gwar and music and all sorts of stuff. He plays in a band. He plays in a Smiths tribute band. And we're just talking and hanging out. And he's like, oh, hey, I just texted Al. He's totally down for it. I'll hook you up with his management. So it was like right then and there. We were hanging out with Thomas Lennon, who I'm a huge fan of Thomas Lennon. The State, which if you haven't seen it or anybody listening, if you haven't seen it, go watch The State. It's like a sketch comedy show from the early mid 90s. It was on MTV. If you like Kids in the Hall and stuff like that, you'll love The State. Okay. Because it was on MTV, it had a lot of rock and roll that was on MTV at the time. And now that it's not on MTV, it kind of never got released because you know how it is. There's different rules for if you have it on TV versus streaming. So they didn't have the rights for it for streaming. So it kind of sat in a vault somewhere for years, but then finally somebody went in and re-edited the whole thing and put new music to it. Cause it had like Jeremy and like from the Pearl Jam and like the Breeders and all sorts of like popular music that they didn't have the rights to, but it's out there now. And Thomas Lennon is hilarious in it. He's so funny. He has this thing called Old Fashioned Guy. That's so funny. It kind of reminds me of Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey from Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's just Thomas Lennon, and he's always like whittling like some wood, and he's like whistling, and he's like, called me old fashioned, but I still believe there's only one true God. And then he goes, and his name is Zorgo. And And he lives in this lake right behind me. And then he kind of keeps whittling and he's like whistles and walks off. It's just, he always says that, call me old fashioned. And he just says something like you think you know where he's going, and then he takes it in a different direction. But he's so funny. So I was a huge fan of his for the longest time, and I still am. So to get to meet him was insane. He was so funny. And then for him to, hook us up with Weird Al was crazy. So yeah, to get to interview Weird Al and him was just nuts. And then there's all sorts of other cool people that are in the doc too that, it was a dream.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And I mean, there's even like, I think Weird Al has like a little anecdote how he was, touring and he arrives at the venue and they're like, we need a couple hours. We're still cleaning up from the Gwar show last night. That was great.
I thought that was so funny, that it make, it's another thing where they seem like they're from different worlds, but he was playing at the venue the very night after they were.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Well, this is awesome. I love hearing about this, Scott. Is there anybody specifically or anyone on your team that you kind of want to talk about or share with us?
Yeah. This documentary was also really cool. I got to work with such great people. That's, one of the, we do this totally DIY. There's no big company behind us. There's no big Mr. Daddy Warbucks behind us. It's just a group of folks that, try to get money wherever we can and then work for free and make this documentary and sleep on people's couches and, work our day jobs and then edit it at night.
I mean, the thing is too, like you wouldn't know that watching it. It looks
thank you.
So professionally done. It's awesome. It looks great.
And that goes to the team. The team that I was able to work with. Jacob Halinga, he's a cinematographer out in LA. And he had worked camera on some other stuff that I had done. And he works on a lot of stuff, a lot of shows and stuff, but he had never had a cinematographer credit. Where he is the DP. And I was like, dude, you're going to be the DP for this. You're going to be the one in charge. And he came up with a whole interesting way to film it. He really likes it. And I did too. The idea of having a distinctive look, I love it when documentaries, they shoot their interviews in a certain way. And, but we didn't want to be so different that it's distracting, because as we were filming it, we realized this was both filming and in editing. We need to be tasteful and simple. We shouldn't try to show off with our editing styles or our filming styles, because the star of this is their story is crazy. It's nuts. You laugh, you cry. They win they get nominated for a Grammy. Yeah. Somebody almost gets killed. I mean, it's insane. So we knew that, we needed to be simple. And I like the fact that the team did that, because a lot of people, you want to show off, you want to be the rock star. But it's like, to make this movie good, we need to be simple. Because watching these guys just tell their story and laugh and cry, it really feels like you're just having a beer with some weird dude you met at a bar who's lived an insane life. We've all had that night where you end up at a bar and you're drinking and some guy has done this crazy shit that you're just like, what the hell? And that's what it's like, just turned up to 11. And we knew that. So, Jacob came up with a really cool way of filming it. If you notice, the Gwar guys are shot in a slightly different way than anybody else. Everybody else is shot kind of in a more standard documentary way. But he did so. I love it because it's so simple. You almost don't notice, but the camera's a little bit lower than eye level on them, so that they look a little bit bigger than life, and the lighting is a little more moody on them. And so I really like that. And then when it came time to edit the thing, I got to work with a really great editor. It's really weird. There was a guy that I knew that we went to high school, and I went to this little high school in Texas, and I don't keep up with anybody from my high school. I mean, like, I'm Facebook friends with them, and sometimes they'll try to sell me, like, they'll hit me up when
smoothies.
They get, like pyramid schemes or something like that.
Yeah.
But, there's some cool people from my high school. I don't want to talk too much crap, but anyway, Casey was a guy I knew in high school. I was in high school a long time ago. He was a really nice guy. I didn't keep up with them. Randomly, I made a documentary about Nickelodeon and sold it to a company called Gravitas. That's a distributor. And then they sold it to Hulu. The same time, this guy from my high school, hadn't seen in years, made a movie, sold it to Gravitas at the same time, within months of when we sold ours to Gravitas.
Wow.
And they both got on Hulu at the same time. And they were both like under the trending documentaries or whatever. And we were like, I think he reached out to me and he's like, "Are you making documentaries and stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." And so he was too. And it was crazy. You know, we would have been friends in high school, but I think we were friends, but we just weren't hangout buddies. And I think that's just because we never had the opportunity. You know, I wish I had, you know, but we just became quick friends, and we loved, I loved talking to him. So he has a movie called Red Dog that's on Hulu, and I would highly recommend anybody watching it. You can see why I wanted to work with him for Gwar. Red Dog is about a guy, you know, in his like 30s, 40s, who is kind of coming to terms maybe with the fact that he grew up in a strip club. His mom was a stripper. That was his family, strippers and bouncers and bartenders. And he's going back and telling their story. So there's all these people that society maybe would say, ugh, you know, you're a stripper, you know, you do drugs, you're a bouncer, you know, and he made them human. And by the end, you want to go hang out with them. You cry. And I was like, that's what this documentary is. As we were filming it, it was just weird. As we were filming it and as we were getting ready to edit it, I came in contact with Casey, and we had all this weird stuff with the documentaries doing the same exact thing. And so I watched his documentary and I was like, "Hey, would you want to work on a Gwar documentary by any chance?" And it's kind of hard to explain how cool the story is, you know, to somebody before you see the footage, before you know.
Yeah.
You know, when all you know of them is a metal band that squirts blood on people. That's neat. And so he was like, I mean, maybe. He's like, "I can help you out. Sure. Send me the footage. I'll look at it." And he immediately was like, "Oh my God, like I want to be the editor on this. I want to work with this." And it was cool to have somebody go down that Gwar rabbit hole with me where he knew everything about it. And he busted his butt on that documentary. He deserves all the credit in the world for how good it looks. He did a lot of the animation too. We had a really talented illustrator named Matthew Cook, and then a couple of other really talented people, Jeff Johnson, who had done some animation on the Nickelodeon documentary. They did the art, but Casey made it move.
Okay.
And he edited it, you know, and he's got a skill that I don't have. And that is he's just super patient. Whatever the opposite of ADD is, he's got that. Because Gwar gave us a ton of archival stuff. You know, when you see the documentary, you're like, it's crazy how much archival footage is in it. And every time they talk about something, we were able to find footage of them doing that. You know, it's insane.
That's great.
And so that was really fun for me because I got to hang out with the Gwar guys at their area. They call it the slave pit. They have it's where they practice and they do their meetings and where they build their monsters. It's really a neat place. But just going through boxes and boxes of VHS and old DVDs and the mini DVDs and all the different types of tapes there are and stuff on thumb drives that somebody had sent them. It was just all this stuff just sitting there with a VCR and transferring it over. Was so much fun going through and finding these treasure troves. But I mean, it was cool, but there was like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. And it's not like it was edited stuff. It was just them with a camcorder filming stuff while they were on the road.
Right.
So Casey had the patience to look through all of that stuff and find that one moment that's like, oh, that's what they're talking about. So he's a really strong editor. And he was just great to work with. He and I shared a lot of the same vision for the movie. In that, you know, we both wanted the editing to be simple and not be punchy. I think there was some choices that I think some editors would go, I don't like that. I don't think that works where, they're always like cut, quick cuts, get to the punchline and cut. Mm-hmm. And you'll see in the documentary, we hang on a couple of shots like uncomfortably long, like really long, but it makes you feel like you're there because you think the camera should cut away and it doesn't. You know?
That's a good point.
When somebody says something that's kind of like, whoa, or you find out something crazy, we kind of hang on it and you see that, so the guy will say what he says and then he'll kind of just be like, I don't know, and kind of like shrug and you see them be kind of vulnerable. And I thought that was really cool that he really wanted to do stuff like that. And also, the documentary is a little bit longer than I think a lot of people would have made it. It's 30 years, but it's also not 30 years of a band. It's 30 years of guys that have made multiple albums, 2 or 3 movies, been nominated for a Grammy. Also just done, there's crazy stuff in there that doesn't happen to a regular band. So we're both like, we're not going to try to hit 90 minutes. We're just not going to try, even though that's what everyone says is like the magic number. We're just like, there's no way. We'll make it as short as we can. And we kind of the documentary comes in right at about 1 hour and 50. So it's not 2 hours long, but it's longer than a lot of documentaries are. And I'm glad that we did that because I don't think it feels like it's drags or that it's 2 hours. It would be one thing if we were padding it. If we felt like we were padding the documentary and just putting stuff on there just to put it on there. But we were struggling with what do we cut? There's so much cool stuff here. So Casey was just awesome to work with. Everybody, the team of producers I got to work with, like Bill and Tommy Avalone, who he's a director himself. Casey, the editor, he's a director. Tommy has directed the Bill Murray stories on Netflix and another movie called I Am Santa. So I got to work with a lot of people that I'm actually fans of.
Oh, that's cool.
Their work. So that was really cool. So I just got to work with a lot of great people and the team was just amazing. Like the whole documentary was such a dream. I always say I'm kind of spoiled. I'm like, I don't even know what I'll do after that. Like after getting to work on something so cool, with such cool people, it was really like, I feel like it would almost be anticlimactic. Like, I'm like, I got to find something really cool to do after this. Like just a regular band with, 2 guitars, bass and drummer. It's like, I don't know if that would satisfy me unless they had a bonkers story.
You're like, yeah, that's it, guys. What else we got here? Give me something.
Yeah. Who's your spew guy? Like, what? We don't, who's your spew guy? We don't have that. We just play guitar and wear regular clothes.
Yeah, no, it was the documentary is great. Yeah, it was. We looked at the time before we started. And we're like, oh, it's a little longer than normal, but yeah, it didn't feel long at all. It felt like everything in there. I couldn't imagine you cutting anything out. Really, everything felt right in there. So that was good.
Yeah. The other thing I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
The other reason, we realized as I was filming it. And we were starting to edit it. We realized that the documentary is them, these folks telling their story. Mm-hmm. And so that was another thing. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of people in Gwar because it's like we were saying. There's 8 people on the stage, but that's just who's in it right now. We go through past members too.
Yeah,
and we knew that if you didn't feel like you got to know them. Because they're all interesting people. And I fell in love with them working on the doc. And if you didn't feel like you got to know them, if you didn't kind of feel for them, then it wouldn't resonate. The tragedy that they suffer wouldn't resonate. What I like to say is like, if you hear on the news that somebody died, that's sad. Like, that really is sad. But when it's like, your best friend's mom dies, like that's different. Mm-hmm. That's different. And so that's what it was. If people can't keep track of who's who, or we're just, we made it 90 minutes, so you don't really get a feel for anybody. And it's just someone saying, yeah, my friend died that I played in a band with. That would be sad. But, people like, Mike Dirks and Brad, they're the drummer and the guitar player, and they've been in it. And they have a couple of really cool moments where they actually cry about their brotherhood. And that's something I did not expect. That's something that almost gets me because it's different. It's different to love that these guys in a metal band love each other so much they cry about it.
Yeah.
Nobody's expecting to see that. So those two, Brad and Mike Dirks, like, you have to love them because they're easy guys to love, to understand, to really resonate with the pain that they feel. Because those guys kind of get hit with the worst of it. Everybody gets hit with it, but you really feel for those guys. And, there's something about seeing somebody that doesn't want to cry that gets you. It's like when you see your dad cry and you're like, something really went bad, So yeah, we knew that you had to feel like you knew them. And so yeah, I really respect Casey for kind of going down that rabbit hole with me of being like, we'll make it a little bit longer. If we felt like if we tried some cuts that were shorter and it actually felt longer. Because because you're not engaged, you're just seeing a bunch of people talk and you don't really get to know them. And you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But when we added those little things where you felt like you knew them, then, when they come and tell their story, you're engaged because you feel like it's a friend. So, it was just, it was really cool. It was the whole thing from pre-production, production, and post-production was just a super fun thing to get to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, man, this was great. I don't think we've even said the name of it. Is This Is Gwar for people listening. Where can we send people to check it out?
Yeah, the documentary is called This Is Gwar, and it's currently on Shudder, which Shudder is awesome. It is not, I think people think that it's all going to be like B-budget horror movies and stuff like that, which, hey, I love that as much as the next guy, but that's not what's on there. They've got John Carpenter films, they've got Halloween, they've got all sorts of cool stuff. They've also got some really artistic documentaries on there. So they're really growing and doing some cool stuff. So it's on Shudder. And if you want to get a free trial, if you subscribe to Shudder and you use code This Is Gwar, no spaces, all caps, This Is Gwar, there's a promo code you can put in. You get 14 days free.
Oh, cool.
So that gives you 14 days to watch it and check it out and see if it's something that you're into. I'm really into it. There's a documentary on there called Scream Queen, and I've loved that documentary for a long time. So to get to have my documentary alongside that one, I feel super honored.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele has a docuseries that he produced that's on there. And it's just got a lot of cool stuff on there. So yeah, check it out on Shudder. Like I said, 14 days. Another way is AMC Plus. If you're interested in AMC Plus, you can do that. AMC Plus is a little bit more expensive, but there's a lot more stuff on there because you get all the stuff that's on AMC, all the stuff that's on Shudder, all the stuff that's on, I think, Sundance and IFC and they own a bunch of things. So you can watch all the Sundance stuff. You can watch Better Call Saul. You can watch This Is Gwar on AMC Plus. So those are the two options. And I think you should. Shudder is worth a shot. It really is.
Shudder's awesome. Yeah, we have a subscription. We love it.
Oh, do you really? I love it so much. And they treated us really well. For anybody that cares about that, just the altruistic, idealistic, moral side of it, I can't believe how good they've treated us. It almost seems like, okay, where's the joke? Where's Ashton Kutcher coming out and telling you this is a joke? It's just great.
Cool.
So yeah, they're really great. And they treat the band really well. They get it, they get it that this is something special. Not just the doc, but Gwar. And so, try it out. There's cool stuff on there. If you're a Gwar fan, there's also a show called Holliston that's on there, and it's got Odorous Urungus on it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So that's a really cool thing. And then Shudder will eventually put it out on iTunes and Amazon and all that if people want to. The traditional transactional video on demand that'll come this fall, probably October. They'll put it on iTunes, Amazon, probably Vudu, all that stuff. Okay. And then around that time we'll also put out a DVD that we're working on right now.
Oh, cool.
that will for sure have a bunch of special features, and maybe we'll have to see if it's in the cards. We'd love to do it like a extended version. I don't know if that'll happen, but we're trying.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, it's a great film for anyone listening. Highly recommend it. I'm sure anyone who listens to this is stoked to watch it now. This was a great interview, Scott. I appreciate you coming on, sharing all this stuff. It was just a joy. Super fun. Thank you.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. This has been awesome.